African Focus Incorporated is a community based organization whose mission is to bring Africans and African Americans together, lead charitable initiatives on the motherland, and educate people from all walks of life on the beauty, legacy, and opportunity of Africa's 54 nations. And it's that time once again when African Focus is teaming up with KBLA Talk 1580 for our 8th annual African Focus Trailblazers Tour. Travel with us in 2026 when we're headed to the Southern African nations of Zambia and Botswana for a historical, cultural, and vacation tour led by me, Dominique DePrima, Cultural Ambassador for African Focus Incorporated. Enjoy luxurious accommodations, conscious fellow travelers, shopping, adventures, cultural tours, wildlife safaris, and a giant waterfall, one of the world's 7 wonders, along with a chance to be of service at an orphanage on the continent. Become an AFI trailblazer by exploring the motherland with a nonprofit organization that has members in Africa and America to help roll out the red carpet for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300. Or africanfocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA, Talk 1580, download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Happy Friday. Our regular host, the creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Gina Towns, executive producer. On Fat Meat Fridays, we sum up our week from Monday through Friday. We're here on KBLA, 12 to 2 p.m. PST, 2 to 4 p.m. CST, and 3 to 5 EST. But if you download the app, you're listening to us as far away as Johannesburg, South Africa, London, England, all over the world. We get calls. We get comments on our Facebook pages about our show. Particularly honored to be on Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns. Gina, we had one hell of a week on the show.
Yes, we did.
I was particularly impressed with, Monday through Friday, every show was great, but Aza Karam and P.L. De Silva yesterday laid a foundation for USAID, as well as the soft diplomacy that has accompanied democracy in the developing world. And she simply argues, to summarize it, it didn't work. That the aid programs, while maybe feeding the hungry or even vaccinating those who are unvaccinated, it still benefited an entrenched elite within the countries who did not believe in democracy. And so Donald Trump's removal of these soft power programs for our allies across the country, which many of us have argued have reduced the number of infant mortalities as well as the number of people who are dying around the world from starvation. She argues that the democracy project that usually accompanies USAID, including a large private sector here in the United States, did not influence from the bottom up the kind of activity that created the American Revolution here in the United States, where our rights, including Bill of Rights, our constitutional rights, including the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, were earned rights. And when you earn the rights through your own country's struggle, you tend to hold on to the Constitution. You hold on to rights that were hard fought because they're part of an education process that become enshrined through a very difficult process, by the way, in the Constitution of the United States. In other words, they are not only written on the soul of the Americans who fought for those rights, they are also written in the document itself, a difficult document to change. Many Americans assume that they can put democracy as we understand it on a silver platter and deliver it to the developing world. And oftentimes, the developing world, even the post-colonial developing world, it isn't following the process by which their constitutions naturally evolve in their societies to protect the rights of, for example, women, minorities, and others. She wrote a fascinating paper on it. We'll talk about that a little bit in the first hour, but I'd like to hear some of your thoughts, Gina.
Well, first of all, that op-ed really needs to be an op-ed that gets picked up. It appeared in Al Jazeera,
Al Jazeera.
and the hard truth is contained in it, and it is a hard truth that a lot of newspapers won't want to pick up because it's very hard. What she did was provide a mirror for us to look at as Americans, and the idea of democracy is one thing, and the practice of democracy is another. And I think that is what was so telling. What she covered in that piece, it really was a moment for pause because, you know, as I saw it, that is the arrogance that a lot of people, a lot of groups around the world see and accuse the United States of being guilty of. To be able to say one thing on paper, to be able to tout that in other countries. But then at home to practice something else, and even in those other countries to practice something less than transparency, honor, and dignity. So, you know, I know throughout the day we will go back and forth in covering this, but we've spent a lot of time this week talking about what's wrong with America and the place that we find ourselves in right now. But I know that you and I have had lots of conversation, and one of the things that I pursued was the ideals that America was founded on. So when we come forward, I'd like to look at that a little further.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Gina Towns on Fat Meat Fridays, right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates Malik Books on celebrating 35 years in business.
It's a celebration.
Malik Books proudly houses one of the largest African American and diverse children's books in the nation. This is the perfect time to pick up holiday reads, meaningful gifts, and to support literacy in our community. For 35 years, Malik Books has stood strong in the Black Book Revolution, uplifting stories that heal, inspire, and transform. One reader at a time. Change your thoughts, change your life. Books are the gift that keeps giving. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, congratulations to Malik Books on 35 years of culture, pride, and community.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates our own Keith Underwood host of the weekend entertainment show Black in the Green Room, on his recent honor at the annual National Arts and Entertainment Journalism Awards. Keith received a first place award presented by the Los Angeles Press Club for his entertainment reporting, and we couldn't be prouder. Congratulations, Keith, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33, and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
If you've been diagnosed with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, this is what it sounds like to be 1,000,000 miles away. Imagine being 1,000,000 miles away. Tremfya Guselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy. With Tremfya, clearer skin is possible. In clinical trials, at least 70% of patients saw at least 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks. Results may vary. Tremfya is also indicated for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Call 1-800-526-7736 or visit tremfya.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drops the beat. Come on and talk with me.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk.
Wanna talk with me?
1580.
Come on and listen to
We have a conversation in the first hour. The word is derived from the Greek terms meaning demos, people, and kratos, rule. That's democracy, where the people rule. Democracy is a system of government where the right to govern lies with the people, who exercise this power either directly or through freely elected representatives. Now, there are a few core principles to democracy, including popular sovereignty, the rule of law, majority rule, and minority rights. Human rights, free and fair elections are among the core principles, but I want to make this pivot before I go through these definitions. This is American democracy, as we have defined it since the inception of the country, growing out of the principles of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. The Declaration of Independence is not our nation's governing document. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish a constitution on September 17th, 1787. On July 4th, 1786, Jefferson articulates a principle, albeit incomplete. All men are created equal, but since men can't create a nation on their own, all men, yes, and women, Elizabeth Cady Stanton would add, are created equal. That's a principle, but it's not the governing document of the United States. We don't live under the Declaration of Independence. We're inspired by the Declaration of Independence, but we live under the Constitution, quite a different document, often both documents finding themselves in conflict, but the governing principles of the Declaration of Independence, freedom, the idea of equality, matter to our interpretation of the Constitution, but they are not the only interpretations of the Constitution. Let's look at these 5 core principles of the democracy. Popular sovereignty, the principle that the government's legitimacy comes from the consent of the governed. Rule of law, every citizen and institution is accountable to the same laws, which were applied equally and fairly. Majority rule and minority rights. While decisions are made by majority vote, democracies must protect the fundamental rights of individuals and minority groups from the tyranny of the majority. Human rights. Protection of essential freedoms, including speech, assembly, and religion, and free and fair elections. Regular, competitive, and inclusive elections where citizens choose their own leaders. This is the process of the evolution of the term democracy in the United States. But when Dr. Karam was on our program this past Thursday, she's written a piece for Al Jazeera. It has yet to be published in the English language, where she challenges the fundamental assumptions of the way in which American democracy has been presented to the third world, to the developing world, often delivered to the third world through its soft aid packages, including USAID, food, vaccinations, and what might be called American goodwill. We expect these developing countries, who have not fought, won, in some cases, revolutionary wars. Number two, did not establish from those struggles a three-tier system of accountability, both a judiciary, executive who is elected, as well as a House of Representatives or Parliament or whatever form representative government may take place in those countries. They did not adopt their constitution and insist upon a Bill of Individual Rights to protect them from the tyranny of those who might be in charge. They did not engage in a process to amend their constitution to eliminate various forms of chattel, slavery, peonage, servitude, or unfreedom. They may or may not have established a 14th Amendment, equal protection of the laws and citizenship rights. They may not have agreed that men in their society, had they been excluded at the inception of the founding of their countries, more specifically, Black men, to add a 15th Amendment to the Constitution. And adding that amendment, to my point, led to another struggle, the women's suffrage movement, because many suffragettes supported the idea of Blacks having the right to vote in the 15th Amendment. But when women were excluded, it would lead to quite a different struggle in our own nation that would culminate in the 19th Amendment of the Constitution, where women have enjoyed essentially that freedom since the passage of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. In other words, in America, we earned our rights. And our rights are not only written in the Constitution of the United States, they are rights that are written on the hearts of the American people because we fought for them, not just in the Revolutionary War, but in various struggles throughout our own history to ensure that we were living up to the principles, again, of the Declaration of Independence, but not necessarily to the founding governing document of the nation itself. And so when you hand American democracy, as we understand it today, to developing countries where they did not earn the rights, but under the kind of scheme where you offer aid and offer this if you just elect your leaders, and over and over and over again in those countries, they keep electing the same elite that was empowered either during the colonial period, the post-colonial period, the neo-colonial period. They're just the enfranchised elite within the countries that no matter what the political winds are in the country, they're always in charge. They're always the go-to people. They're always the beneficiary of the overwhelming largesse, because democracy in those countries did not start from the bottom up. They came from the top down. I don't think I can say it any better than that. Gina, your thoughts on some clips that you want to share with us on how our democracy was troubled at its beginning.
Well, first of all, from our discussion yesterday, from what you just laid out, I did a little bit of research. And on this day in history, I found some very significant occurrences. One, Benjamin Franklin published the Farmer's Almanac, which was a Poor Richard's Almanac, rather, which was a very big deal in 1732. George Washington led the troops into their winter time at Valley Forge. But significantly I found Thomas Paine, and most people, if they know Thomas Paine or any of his writings, are more familiar with Common Sense. But I found The American Crisis and I said, that's where we are right now. And so the whole messaging behind today's discussion, I wanted us to be able to take a look at how cyclical, though it is linear, our history is linear, but man cycles itself. There's really nothing new about man, his instincts, his charge, if you will, to satisfy self. But one of the most interesting things about what Paine said in The American Crisis on December 19th, 1776, and this not long after freedom was won in the American Revolution, the American Crisis, Paine publishes an essay, and it is a shot in the arm to the Patriots during a particularly difficult stretch of the American Revolution. And in it, he wrote, "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from service to his country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph." And it kind of really echoed back to all that you just said, what we talked about on and off throughout the week about the tyranny, about the evil that exists in front of us, the apple that we tend to want to take a bite of, our neglect to really live up to some of what we espouse in our Constitution, in our Declaration, in the fight for democracy, and even the fight for freedom in the American Revolution, but then our fight for freedom in the Civil Rights Movement. It's very interesting to see us here once again at this struggle, not living up to our ideals as espoused. And I have some, if they are here.
I found that thing that you mentioned about Thomas Paine, where he says that the harder the conflict, the greater the triumph. That's not just a military victory. That's what you've been through, what the people have been through, what an individual has been through. The harder the conflict, no testimony. What is written on our hearts as a result of the conflict, from that triumph emerges, well, what Max Cleland, who I had the privilege of serving with when he was in the United States Senate, a Vietnam veteran, said, it resulted in strength in broken places. Where you once were not strong, you are now strong where the bone broke, or where the tension occurred, or where the conflict occurred. Even Ernest Hemingway says that when man is presented with adversity, they find themselves stronger in the adverse places than they were before they were presented. Gina?
What's interesting is that because we are at a time, and different people, and especially Black people, our community can very easily, we can, flick off the Declaration of Independence and all that the nation was founded upon because slavery existed. But I think it's very important when you think about history, and if you were in a period where you fought for something, and let's take Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, for example, right here. If history were to portray you as in a group of people who agreed with one thing or another, but that was not your position, yet you were noted in history, you might feel some sort of way. And everybody wants to be recognized for what their beliefs were if you find your place in history. The interesting thing about Thomas Paine is that he did not own slaves. Benjamin Franklin came to a point, and we have a clip on that that we will see when we come forward. And the Adamses did not own slaves. So you find here a number of people who are significant in the founding of the country, in the documents to the country, who had a different take on humanity, on God's hand in creating not only humanity, the world, but in this nation. So here, I find it very interesting that some of the founders had a preoccupation with the Lord's Prayer. And in it is contained the phrase, on earth as it is in heaven. And if you think about the fact that Jesus, while he was on earth, was very concerned with the thirst of people, the hunger of people, clothing people, and visiting people in prison. And you then latch that on to, well, these guys were preoccupied with it, what happened during that time. And so if you see our Congress in the debate that it's in and the stalemates that it finds it in, then so why do we think it was any less at that point in time?
My read on the architects and the various versions of the world prayer that Benjamin Franklin wrote, a very different version of the Lord's Prayer in English from Thomas Jefferson in his extracts from the Greek to the Latin to the French to the English language, a very different interpretation of the Lord's Prayer from Charles Thompson, who was Secretary of the Convention. And when you see the Lord's Prayer, at least for me, while we talk about on earth as it is in heaven in the present interpretations of the Bible, on earth is surface level. Jefferson and I think Franklin's interpretation, maybe Thompson's interpretation, it's been a minute since I studied it, they changed the word and they believe the correct interpretation is in the earth, not on earth as it is in heaven, surface, but in the earth, like down by the roots, like deeper than that. And they didn't see Jesus of Nazareth and this particular prayer as being a surface level proposition, that they wanted it to be understood as a core precept, that to be deeper in the conversation of what constitutes forgiveness, mercy, love, the precepts of the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth, the least of these, and caring for the sick, caring for those who cannot care for themselves. It was a deeper understanding, and on earth could not possibly have been the proper interpretation as it transitioned from the oral tradition to the Greek, to the Latin, to the French, and ultimately the English language. And so Jefferson removed all of the miracles from this proposition to get to the bottom line of this deep theological insight. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Fat Meat Friday with Gina Towns, KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward in just a moment.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says there's still a chance for compromise on Chicago's 2026 budget, but most alders say it's too late and are moving ahead with their own plan.
We would like to see the homework they've done to come up with these numbers and projections today, given that we have a ticking clock and a deadline to meet.
The council met again Thursday with no resolution. Court filings show federal prosecutors unsuccessfully trying to add a third felony charge against Black New York Attorney General Letitia James. The effort failed to secure a new indictment, marking the second time prosecutors have fallen short after her earlier case was dismissed. And Tyra Banks is being sued for $2.8 million over an alleged lease breach tied to a planned ice cream shop in Washington, D.C. Her company says it backed out after not getting full access to the space and has filed a motion to dismiss. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The college football playoffs kick off this weekend. 4 teams have first-round byes. Tabitha Smiley's Indiana Hoosiers, Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas Tech. UCLA fans may find out on Saturday when new football coach Bob Chesney reports for work. Chesney, hired by UCLA on December 6th, was permitted to coach James Madison in their first-round playoff game Saturday at Oregon. When James Madison's season is over, Chesney will be on the clock at UCLA. Oregon is a 20-point favorite over James Madison. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford has 40 touchdown passes this season, one shy of his single-season career high. He's had 41 twice in his 16-year career. As good a season as Stafford is having, he's a long way from the NFL record. Peyton Manning holds the NFL record with 55 touchdown passes in 2013 when he was with Denver. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
In a city as big as LA, healthcare shouldn't feel far away. That's why Cedars-Sinai is breaking down barriers and bringing resources like free screenings, vaccinations, and wellness programs into local communities. From Leimert Park to Lincoln Heights and everywhere in between, Cedars-Sinai is showing up, partnering with over 200 local organizations to improve access to healthcare resources. Because care doesn't just happen inside a hospital. It happens in neighborhoods and places around the city where we live, work, and grow. Cedars-Sinai, here for LA.
One year ago, flames tore through Altadena and Eaton Canyon, changing lives forever. From the ashes, can a beloved community rise stronger? Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, host of First Things First, weekday mornings, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580. And I'm inviting you to join us on Wednesday, January 7th, as we broadcast live from Perry's Joint on the one-year anniversary of this horrific and devastating fire. We're remembering those we lost, celebrating the heroes and sheroes who answered the call, and honoring the resilience of neighbors who are determined to rebuild together.
I've been a strong black woman a long time, and I can't just break down now.
Hear the stories of survival, the voices of recovery, the spirit of community that the fire couldn't destroy, and yes, the angst of those who still do not know where they go from here.
Yeah, where am I go?
At KBLA Talk 1580, we don't just cover the story, we're part of this community, and we've done our level best to hold those responsible for this fire accountable. And 1 year later, we're still standing together.
It is my hopes that Black people will rebuild those homes.
So join us live at Perry's Joint, 2051 Lincoln Avenue in Pasadena, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Wednesday, January 7th, as we commemorate the 1 year anniversary of the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire. Because some stories demand to be remembered.
This too shall pass.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk.
Come on and listen to me.
Friday with Gina Towns, our executive director and creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Welcome forward to the show, Gina.
Thank you, Jesse. How are you on this Friday? It's cold. It's cold.
Freezing here in Chicago. I mean, like unbelievably cold.
It's 17, feels like -5.
It's at least that.
That's okay. We're still keeping stride.
Gina, your thoughts. And I think you have a clip for us.
I do have a clip. And just if you're just tuning in or joining us on Facebook or YouTube, we are discussing where we are as an American people. We've taken a lot of time over the week to talk about where we are. Taking a lot of time to talk about the difference in leadership that we find ourselves in this place in history in which we find ourselves. But if we think about it, this is not necessarily new, and it really does go past the civil rights movement to the founding of the country. But is there anything salvageable? Is there anything that we can lay our hat on? Because unless we are united in our fight, house divided will fall. You may have heard that somewhere. We have a clip, and if we can go to that clip right now, we'll talk about Thomas Paine.
Right behind me here at 59 Grove Street once stood the home of Marguerite de Bonneville, and she was dear friends with this man right here, Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine was a writer, a journalist, a pamphleteer, a war correspondent. He traveled alongside George Washington in the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War, and he wrote about what he saw. It was the winter of 1776. Washington and his army are in New Jersey making their way to McConkey's Ferry to cross the Delaware. The soldiers are shoeless, shirtless, coatless. They have literally resorted to eating their horses. Soldiers have a 1-year enlistment. That's it. That enlistment is up at Christmas time. Nobody wants to be on the losing side of a war. I have my warm bed at home and my beautiful wife. Soldiers were threatening not to re-enlist. And that is when Thomas Paine penned one of his most famous pamphlets, The Crisis. And it started like this. These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier, the sunshine patriot, and this crisis will shrink from the service of their country. But those that stand by us now deserve the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, but we have this consolation, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. Now, Washington reads this and he says, I don't care how tired and cold they are, line up the Continental Army. I want the crisis read in its full entirety. The soldiers line up, the crisis is read, tears stream down the faces of those soldiers, and they enlist to fight another year. They would also, from that point on, adopt the motto, victory or death, and this would inspire them to cross the Delaware and win the Battle of Trenton. This was a critical moment. Some fought with the sword, others fought with the quill, just as valid. Who knows what would have happened if not for Thomas Paine? Thomas Paine would die on this site in the home of his dear friend Marguerite de Bonneville in 1809, and this plaque here commemorates that. Check out some of Thomas Paine's most famous quotes inscribed here. The world is my country. All of mankind are my brethren, and to do good is my religion. Boy, we could sure use a few good men like Thomas Paine today.
Gina, that was very moving.
How about that?
That was very moving. And I think that one of the critical elements of the American crisis, if I remember, was that Thomas Paine felt some kind of way about the peculiar institution of slavery.
Oh, absolutely. He was not a fan of it, and he questioned, how can we say that we believe one thing as we're founding this country and doing another? But I think, if we are not critical of those who come before us, we all kind of live that way sometimes. We want to be a certain way. We want to have ideals that we think we live up to, and then we fall short of it. And so I am pushing this today because I want to know, and I want us to consider, not only as individuals, but I want us to consider as community, as families, if we can muster up enough, like Thomas Paine talked about, in order to go this battle, this long haul, this winter that we find ourselves in. And of course, on this day in history, as I mentioned, if you weren't with us, this is the day that Washington did go to Valley Forge and endure a long winter. This is the day that Benjamin Franklin published Poor Richard's Almanac. So there's a lot to our history, and I don't believe, and I know that our guests in the next hour will join me, God does not make mistakes. We are in the exact time and exact place, and we have to make a decision.
I want to just add, I think about the Revolutionary War, and I wasn't there, and no one alive was. But when I think about wars today, everybody fights, every single soldier, for what they believe. We might try a single narrative that our men and women are fighting for what that narrative that comes from the news media or even our historians' interpretation of what the conflict was about. But at a real level, when one puts it all on the line for liberty, each of us are fighting for something different. If I went to war today, I'd fight for this nation because I believe it is a nation and an experiment that is going somewhere. Because from 1619 to the present, there is this struggle against the peculiar institution of slavery. And it is the only nation in the history of the world where that struggle can take place. Now, I might be in a foxhole with one of my brothers from downstate Illinois, or I might be in a foxhole with somebody from Kentucky, and I'm almost certain that they're not fighting for the liberties that I enjoy and that live within my being from 1619 to 2025, 2026. They have their own reasons. Some of them might be fighting for family. Some of them might genuinely believe that the security and the freedom of their children is at stake. Women fighting alongside of me have to be fighting, in my imagination, for a number of reasons, but among those individual reasons are the idea that they have freedoms in this country that they don't have in Afghanistan or Iran or other parts of the world. America is worth fighting for, but no two soldiers are fighting for the exact same reason. No two Americans, when they are fighting for the Bill of Rights or fighting for civil rights or fighting for Americans with disabilities, no two Americans are fighting for the exact same thing. But the idea that we can coalesce around the idea that we can fight for something that is right is worth the fight. But to suggest that my narrative is the reason you're fighting or the reason that I'm willing to put my life on the line is not the same as your narrative for why you are fighting. And then I imagine in World War I and World War II and other conflicts where African Americans could don on the uniform after the American Civil War, the United States colored troops. Each of us were fighting, even though when we finished fighting, there were rights we were not guaranteed here at home as Americans. No two people, Gina, are fighting for the same reason. Thomas Paine is arguing against slavery, in part in the American crisis, but George Washington, when he's crossing the Delaware as a slaveholder, on that point, he doesn't give a damn what Thomas Paine thinks. He's keeping his property now, but he's fighting for a different reason. It culminates in a beautiful and amazing story that we call America, but it's not necessarily the basis of what the fight was all about.
Well, now you have really brought up some interesting points for all of us to consider, and I agree, but I immediately thought about the Bears. So when we come back, when we come forward, we'll talk about what it is to rah-rah for a team who never wins.
We're all in agreement when it comes to the Packers. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to KBLA Talk 1580. More on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Townsend when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
In California, all workers have rights, no matter their immigration status. If you or a family member were detained by federal immigration authorities and did not receive your final paycheck, contact the Labor Commissioner's office. You can file a claim even if you left California or the U.S. Call 833-526-4636 from the U.S. or outside the country 001-833-526-4636. Document wage theft and report it to the Labor Commissioner's office.
Did you know that streaming music, ebooks, audiobooks, movies, and more is available for free from the Los Angeles Public Library? With your library card, you can access the latest music and movies, audiobooks and ebooks, graphic novels, comic books, magazines, and more. If you don't have a library card and live in the city of Los Angeles, you can get a digital card online for free. Check it out at lapl.org/emedia. That's lapl.org/emedia.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
I can't believe how spotless my floors look after using the Swiffer Power Mop. No more dragging around a heavy mop and messy bucket. Now I get the same deep clean without all the work. Thanks to the powerful solution and scrubbing pad of the Swiffer Power Mop, dirt and grime don't stand a chance, and I don't break a sweat. Mic drop. Mop drop.
Swiffer Power Mop. Swiffer Power Mop.
A smarter way to mop. Try it or your money back.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk. It's that new Fridays.
Come on and listen to the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We've been talking about the founding fathers and some of the deep challenges that they must have confronted, including but not limited to hypocrisy. Gina?
Yeah. So during the break and before we left, I was questioning whether we can muster up. I want to know if we as a Black community, I want to know if generations, Z, millennials can muster up enough for America to fight for her. You can say, well, this wasn't ours to begin with, but the gift of the amendment process, which only America has now, for us to be able to move forward and address the things in our society that we need to address. 13, 14, and 15. Those amendments apply to Black people. They apply to slavery. They apply to our freedom. And so I want to know, because this belongs to me. This thing belongs to me, and I want to know if everybody's going to fight it. Not maybe I should think about packing up like some of my friends have. But we have these examples, these nuggets in Thomas Paine and Benjamin Franklin, even the Adams family, who never owned slaves, who had to be fighting that fight.
Gina, it took one amendment to the Constitution almost 200 years to pass. And that amendment, I believe, was regarding congressional pay raises. I can't blame the American people for saying, we're not adding that to the Constitution. Hey, I get it. Yeah. But then there are other amendments to the Constitution that took only 100 days. Others have taken 10 months to add to the Constitution. What do those amendments have in common? It requires the American people to be in agreement. Red and blue, black and white, brown, Native American, every single American has to be nearing agreement in order to separate the old America, whatever it is, from the new America that we desire. It is a high hurdle to overcome. 2/3 of the Congress and 3/4 of the states isn't just about filing an amendment. Consistent with what we said in the previous segments of the show, Amendments to the Constitution have to be written on the hearts of the American people. They have to be written on the hearts of the American people all at the same time in order to have a congressional majority of 2/3. And then 3/4 of the state legislatures all have to agree that it's important and that it must happen at the same time. And that's how you expedite an amendment to the Constitution. And I find it somewhat amazing that healthcare, education, right to decent, safe, and affordable housing, the right to vote are still amendments to the Constitution that have escaped our democracy. And today, more than ever, our democracy is in trouble. Gina, I think you have a clip.
Well, before we go there, we came forward, we talked about the fact that everybody who's fighting in a war is not there for the same reason. You might be in a bunker with somebody who doesn't believe the same thing that you believe, but you're fighting for the same thing. And then we brought up football, America's pastime, and why we still cheer for our teams. I might still cheer for the Bears because I remember the 85, Super Bowl shuffle, and I'm loyal to that. And but I might, if I'm in another state, I might like the Bears for another reason, or I might like Philadelphia for another reason. I don't live in Philadelphia, but when part of our team went there, our quarterback went there, some of me went there. And so people do fight for things for different reasons, but can we all get on the same page? Is it necessary for us to all have the same reason? No.
When the coach of the 85 Bears began trading his Super Bowl team because he didn't want to pay them, I felt good about the 84 Bears when they were doing the Bear Shuffle, but I don't feel good about it when the coach decided he didn't want to pay Wilbur Marshall. He didn't want to pay certain key players that could have created a dynasty in the city of Chicago. And then the owners didn't want to invest any more money in players in the Bears. And so I haven't returned essentially to the Bears since 1985.
Oh, that's problematic.
So it may be.
But what I'm getting, that's exactly what I'm getting to. Can you still wrap your head around democracy and the founding tenets? If we look at these men studied this thing about on earth as it is in heaven, in earth as it is in heaven. Can we still get our minds around the idea of democracy, even though it has fallen short, even though it has been hypocritical, it has been mean and evil at some times, and it is that now. So do we still have it in us to still cheer for it and still fight for it? That's what I'm getting to, because we know that this is an age-old argument that continues from the Constitutional Convention.
I would hope that we would, as Americans, believe that all Americans deserve the fundamental right to vote, that the federal government should not tamper with it. Federal courts should not be able to tamper with it. State legislatures should not be able to tamper with it. A president of the United States should not be able to tamper with it. It ought to be added to the Constitution of the United States. It sounds like a simple thing, but it's not there. We have a state right to vote in the United States, and that state's right to vote means that every state has a different system. And we can't reach agreement that we live in a democracy where the supreme power, demos, people, kratos, rule, democracy, rule, comes from the people. And therefore, we need to take something from the federal government, take something from the state governments, and give it back to the people. And for me right now, that is the fundamental right to vote. If we can have a TSA that won't let a bottle of water on a plane across the country, we can build one system with one set of standards from sea to shining sea, where everyone walks in and out of a polling place and feels secure about casting their franchise. Gina?
Let's go to the clip.
Franklin had started to acquire some wealth. Like many other colonial Pennsylvanians, he held a number of enslaved people, up to 5 or 6 in his home, including a married couple, Peter and Jemima. He was committed to slave labor. He used it alongside of his business ventures in order to gain more wealth.
At the time, nearly 1/10 of Philadelphia's residents were enslaved, toiling in homes and businesses.
We tend to associate slavery with plantation labor in the South, but there were slaves all up and down the eastern seaboard, every one of the 13 colonies. And they did everything. They served as domestic servants, they served as cooks, they served as nursemaids, they served as dock workers, they served as hired hands. The advantage was that Africans couldn't leave. Indentured servants filled out their time. Africans you had for life.
Many of Franklin's Quaker friends considered slavery a sin that threatened to corrode the moral fiber of the community at large. Franklin published some of their anti-slavery tracts, though he intentionally kept his own name as printer off the title page.
Franklin lived at a moment in which slavery was being challenged pretty constantly in Philadelphia. He was very aware that this was happening, yet he still made the decision to hold on to his men and women who were enslaved. He made a choice.
Hi, this is Ken Burns. I hope you enjoyed that excerpt.
Pleasing, like, well, everybody else has, is doing this, and I don't want to stand out from the crowd. I think that's what we're finding right now. I know people who don't sign on for what's going on right now in our government, where people are losing their rights and losing their jobs and not being considered for jobs, and education isn't equal still. But they still haven't spoken up. And I think we have to be able to provide people with a place to put their left foot and their right foot going forward.
If I can quote Langston Hughes to sum up this moment, sum up this segment. Sure, call me any ugly name you choose. The steel of freedom does not stain. From those who live like leeches on the people's lives, we must take back our land again, America. Oh yes, I say it plain. America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns, our executive director. What a wonderful segment, G.
Yes, it was.
I appreciate you. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Fat Meat Fridays on Jesse Jackson Jr.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says there's still a chance for compromise on Chicago's 2026 budget, but most alders say it's too late and are moving ahead with their own plan.
We would like to see the homework they've done to come up with these numbers and projections today, given that we have a ticking clock and a deadline to meet.
The council met again Thursday with no resolution. Court filings show federal prosecutors unsuccessfully trying to add a third felony charge against Black New York Attorney General Letitia James. The effort failed to secure a new indictment, marking the second time prosecutors have fallen short after her earlier case was dismissed. And Tyra Banks is being sued for $2.8 million over an alleged lease breach tied to a planned ice cream shop in Washington, D.C. Her company says it backed out after not getting full access to the space and has filed a motion to dismiss. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The college football playoffs kick off this weekend. 4 teams have first-round byes. Tabitha Smiley's Indiana Hoosiers, Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas Tech. UCLA fans may find out on Saturday when new football coach Bob Chesney reports for work. Chesney, hired by UCLA on December 6th, was permitted to coach James Madison in their first-round playoff game Saturday at Oregon. When James Madison's season is over, Chesney will be on the clock at UCLA. Oregon is a 20-point favorite over James Madison. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford has 40 touchdown passes this season, one shy of his single-season career high. He's had 41 twice in his 16-year career. As good a season as Stafford is having, he's a long way from the NFL record. Peyton Manning holds the NFL record with 55 touchdown passes in 2013 when he was with Denver. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Happy holidays!
This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580, download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Fat Meat Fridays with our executive producer and the creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Miss Gina Towns. Gina, welcome forward to the show.
Happy Friday, Jesse Jr. How are you?
I'm doing just great. In this hour, Reverend Dr. Michael C. Neighbors, senior pastor of the historic Second Baptist Church in Evanston, Illinois. The 140-plus-year-old church is one of the oldest African-American congregations on the North Shore. Since arriving at Second Baptist, Dr. Neighbors has sought to continue leading the church in its historical role as a trumpeter for Christ and as a social justice advocate in Evanston and metropolitan Chicago. Recently, Second Baptist Church has become a leading faith center in America in facilitating race, talk, solidarity circles in local communities. Dr. Neighbors teaches homiletics and qualitative research and theological writing at the Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary in Evanston, Illinois. He served as director of the Master of Divinity and Student Life programs at Ecumenical Theological Seminary in Detroit, where he was professor of homiletics and African American religious history. Dr. Neighbors, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with Gina Towns on Fat Meat Friday.
Jesse Jackson and Gina, I am happy to be here and delighted and looking forward to our conversation together.
Absolutely.
Gina?
Dr. Neighbors, I know that you have spent some time looking at the show over the week, particularly yesterday, and you listened to our first hour today, and you know I have some things on my mind, and Jesse is obviously an expert on this. And so this involves our government. This is basically the law of Moses and the law in which we live by. And so I'm looking for spirit where the civil code intersects with the moral code, Dr. Neighbors.
Yes, absolutely, Gina. I think it is a conversation and it is an issue where the fierce urgency of now demands that we give it all the attention that we possibly can. And I'm grateful that you all have taken time out this week to bring in some incredible experts. I had a chance to listen in on Dr. Karam and Dr. De Silva, experts in their own arenas, obviously, but also there's an intersectionality with them, both in higher education, in government, in religion. Both of them have been involved in the Parliament of World Religions. They've been involved at the highest level And I think the way that the conversation went was just delightful. I was especially pleased with Dr. Karam, and everything that she had to say, I think, was just absolutely positive and outstanding. And some of the things that she has said, obviously, throughout the course of her career, lends itself to offering a religious critique against leadership that has gone awry. And she's very famous for saying that, we do have people who are in leadership positions of authority in this country, but that does not make them leaders. They are simply human beings who are in leadership positions, but they forgot all about what it means to be a leader.
Absolutely.
I was particularly moved by her idea that democracy, the way in which the American people, Dr. Neighbors, for multiple generations have delivered it as the penultimate government system that comes from the ground up. And she questions so many of the assumptions about earned rights versus rights that we've delivered to people on a platter that they may not even be asking for in certain societies, contingent upon certain aid programs that we provide, both not only with the government, but the entire infrastructure of the private sector, the various foundations from Ford to Hewlett that come right behind those programs that essentially empower an elite in the underserved or underdeveloped world. And democracy itself, even though there are 192 constitutions around the world that have emulated the US Constitution, it is floundering in large measure because it is not a system from the bottom up.
Jesse, again, I think you're spot on with regard to that. And I think that was an emphasis that Dr. Karam definitely had. I do agree. I would suggest that our Constitution of the United States, which actually was one of the primary designs for democracy in our modern world and in the Western world, has never lived up to the words. Now, we've never really examined the words greatly because so many of us have simply felt they haven't lived up to it. But in examining the actual words of the Constitution, there are probably some considerable issues that are related to what you just outlined. And that is the democracy, the way that it was written by an elite part of those who were the early founders of our American democracy. It wasn't written by everybody. It wasn't written by folks who were residents, I would say farmers, I would say the poor. It was written by those folks that were elite. And so they came with an elite perspective. They came with an elite agenda. And that agenda and that perspective was really based upon a society that was tiered, not as much as maybe India with its caste system, but definitely a society that had different tiers, where mobility was very difficult for those who were on the bottom. You all know that Blacks were considered 3/5 of a human being. I'm not sure that they considered Native Americans whatsoever. I don't even think they gave them 3/5 of a person in terms of how they felt about them. Women was another category that was not considered to be fully human. So even within the essence and within the foundation of democracy, we have issues that are related to bias and prejudice. So going back to that, we have to say to ourselves, how do we create a democracy that goes beyond what the Constitution was all about? And that's a radical perspective for a lot of people.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Dr. Neighbors and Gina Towns on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward on Fat Meat Fridays.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates Malik Books on celebrating 35 years in business.
It's a celebration.
Malik Books proudly houses one of the largest African American and diverse children's books in the nation. This is the perfect time to pick up holiday reads, meaningful gifts, and to support literacy in our community. For 35 years, Malik Books has stood strong in the Black Book Revolution, uplifting stories that that heal, inspire, and transform. One reader at a time. Change your thoughts, change your life. Books are the gift that keeps giving. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, congratulations to Malik Books on 35 years of culture, pride, and community.
Break out the champagne. Everybody can blast.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates our own Keith Underwood, host of the weekend entertainment show Black in the Green Room, on his recent honor at the annual National Arts and Entertainment Journalism Awards. Keith received a first place award presented by the Los Angeles Press Club for his entertainment reporting, and we couldn't be prouder. Congratulations, Keith, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
If you've been diagnosed with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, this is what it sounds like to be a million miles away. Imagine being a million miles away. Tremfya guselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy. With Tremfya, clearer skin is possible. In clinical trials, at least 70% of patients saw at least 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks. Results may vary. Tremfya is also indicated for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Call 1-800-526-7736 or visit tremfya.com.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
Hey! The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me.
I'm Jesse Jackson. Welcome aboard to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Back Fridays. And our executive producer and creator, Tina Towns, is our guest, regular contributing host on the show. And our very special guest in this hour is Dr. Neighbors, who is the pastor of Second Baptist Church of Evanston, Illinois. Pastor Neighbors, welcome forward to the show.
Thank you so much, Jesse. I'm glad to be here.
You're always welcome, sir. Gina has some insights and some thoughts about the conversation we were having before the break.
So, Dr. Neighbors, I know that you were listening in our first hour, and I would like to bring some of our listeners and those who are just joining us live on Facebook and on YouTube. And we are talking about, is there a reason to fight? Is there still a reason to hope for, cheer for, and engage on the front line in the experiment called America? When we find ourselves in this generation having to fight a battle that we may feel like is old and we are tired of doing it. But I go to the amendment process itself and the founders. And actually, I always separate when I'm talking to people. There's the framers and there's the founders, the select group of people who actually put pen to paper to put down the governing laws and the ideals of our country. And so in that, they gave us the amendment process, which allows us to move forward theologically and chronologically. And so if you say 13, 14, and 15 apply to the freedom of those who were once held in chattel slavery, then if you don't respect that and give them the right to do, then everyone is not cheering on the team. We use the example of football in the last segment. Everybody's not cheering for the Bears right now. Even though you may have wanted to cheer for the Bears, you do not now. And then if you go on to women's suffrage and women now have the right to vote, you have part of the population that's like, yes, women can vote. We fought for this. And you have another population that's like, not so much. And so if you are not controlling the system itself, then you can still put your knee on the neck of those who have moved forward chronologically, and you have not allowed your theology to move forward. And we see that even in the patriarchy of our churches. And so if this whole thing is founded in all of that, Can we muster up? Because what that requires is we, the people, not the elite, not the people who have, say so in government. It really does require, and our strength is for we, the people, is in the vote, but it's a little bit more than that. Would you say that, Reverend? It's more.
Yeah, well, it is, Gina. I think that you're hitting a home run right now with regard to what we're facing in the United States. And I think that what you're asking, is it worth it? We've been here before. We're tired. We're fatigued. The burden is getting greater and greater. At the same time, when we recognize the reality of all of those issues that so many people are really talking about, we also understand we really only have two options, and I think we really only have one. But one option is that we do throw up our hands, that we do throw in the towel and say, it's too much, I'm done. I'm just going to get by. I'm just going to do what I can. I'm just going to survive. But the other option is a belief that this country where we are right now is a place that God has placed us. For better or worse, the African diaspora, here we are. And we are millions strong. And it's not just African Americans right now that are suffering, but that's what I'm talking about right now. We are suffering, but we are millions strong. We've been in this country for centuries. This is our country. And as I've mentioned to you all before, in a couple of other sessions, in my own family, I can go back 7 generations to a 7th great grandfather that fought in the American Revolution. I'm not prepared to throw up my hands. I'm not prepared to say, okay, they have the power, they have the authority, they're in the positions. It's just for the time. I believe in the power of the gospel, and the power of the gospel speaks very, very clearly. Jesus said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor and to set at liberty those who are oppressed. And that's what a part of our responsibility is. So I don't think we can throw our hands up. We can say that we've been here before. And we have been here before. Jesse, you just quoted one of the most beautiful poems by Langston Hughes. America never was America to me. But, that was written probably within the last 80 years. Go back to 1852, and you can hear Langston Hughes echoing the sentiment of Frederick Douglass, who said the 4th of July's independence is not an independence for me or for my people. And he was speaking in front of white folks. You can go back to 1829 and the writing of David T. Walker, who wrote the Appeal to Colored Citizens in the United States of America, demanding to white Americans that slavery must end right away. If not, they will all be condemned to hell. So we got this kind of prophetic fire that burns within our veins. And that prophetic fire, Gina and Jesse, it seems to me, has to now somehow come forth in very strategic and very well-planned ways of action. The urgency of now demands that we stop talking and start enacting power locally to make a difference.
Gina, that was a great point that you raised, and a profound reflection. And Dr. Neighbors put some banana cream ice cream right on top of it. I would, so it's perfect. But, when I think and reflect upon the documents themselves, when the Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution just 2, maybe 3 years after the Constitution was written in 1791, the Constitution itself, that meeting in Philadelphia Hall, was so elite and so exclusive that the American people were prepared to reject the Republic. We're going to reject the Republic unless you add these 10 amendments to the Constitution, including but not limited to freedom of speech, assembly, religion, the right for us to keep foxes, wolves, bears, warthogs, Negroes, and even white folks who might come and encroach upon our own property. We need a pistol or rifle to do something about that. And so that's not happening. A Second Amendment, which haunts us to this day. Now, if we're honest, the First Amendment, while preservative of many of our rights as Americans, the entire Bill of Rights was not necessarily crafted for modern America. It's just not. Freedom of the press, everybody's in the press now. If you've got a podcast, everybody has always had an opinion, but there are no filters that include the major traditional publications by which we receive it. If we're honest, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, from the perspective of African Americans, is obviously a turning point away from states' rights to human rights. We have a human right. No American, no person who's coming to these shores has a state right to be in some form of slavery. But the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to save the Union is part of a bribery. It is part of a bribery to welcome Southern states back into the Union who seceded. It was not commonly and broadly accepted by everyone. Even in the movie Lincoln, when the woman is sitting there talking with Lincoln, she's asking him about the Negroes, and Lincoln, that she wants her little tax not to be paid or to be paid, crossing a little bridge that they own. She said, Lincoln said, go back and tell your congressman that you believe in the 13th Amendment. Because without the 13th Amendment, I can't keep the slaves free, or this war will start again, et cetera, et cetera. It's right there. So we've got a bribery right here on the turning point of the Constitution. Maybe the first earned amendment, where all of the American people in modern America had to adjust their laws, their attitudes, and their behaviors, was the 19th Amendment, where it had to go through more states and a larger process of acceptance in terms of the right to vote for women. And then they get easier, like the 26th Amendment. If we can die in Vietnam, why can't 18-year-olds have the right to vote for the people who might send them to Vietnam? They get easier because they become more logical in terms of expanding the democracy. Now, I say all of that to say each of these rights, Dr. Neighbors, are not necessarily adopted and accepted, even though they are constitutional. They're not written on the hearts of men, and women, even though they are written and enshrined in the document. And we say it so quickly. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Well, that's a bribery. Texas never agreed with that. Mississippi just passed the 13th Amendment within the last 10 years or 15 years or so. They just kind of dragged along with it. Dr. Neighbors, we live under the Constitution, but we're not all particularly set in agreement.
You are absolutely right. I think that's a profound analysis and perspective of the Constitution and how it has fallen short in terms of its applicability to Americans in our country, and especially those who have existed in the margins of our society. When I heard you talking just now, what continued to ring in my ear is, is Dr. King. And so many people who believed in what Dr. King was doing in terms of the civil rights movement also were people who would say to him, but we have to abide by the law. We cannot break the law. We have to abide by the law. And that was being said to him wherever he went, whether it was some of the deeper states in the South or whether it was right here in Chicagoland. And his answer was always the same. And that answer was, there is a higher law that I abide by. And that higher law for him was the law of God, was a God of justice, a God of righteousness, a God who really judges with fairness and with equity, what we would say now, which is so, people are afraid to say it, with diversity, equity, and inclusivity. That's the kind of God that Martin Luther King Jr. was referring to. So when you talk about how I think that the Constitution has always fallen short, as a people, I think we know that, we recognize that. And while we have always fought for these amendments that you described so beautifully, at the same time, we are always appealing to a higher law. And that higher law is the thing that I think holds our faith together. It holds our hope together in the season of Advent. What is Advent except a season of expectation and a season of hope? That as difficult as things are right now, as painful as they are right now, things are going to get better. Just yesterday, Jesse, I was running around town chasing after ICE because they reappeared in Evanston. Wow. And so we were trying to race them down, as is our custom in our community, because they're going around trying to arrest people that they say are here illegally. But guess where they're going? They're going to jobs of employment. They're going to Home Depot where folks are working. They're going to gas stations where folks are working. And to me, those people, it seems to me, also should be protected by the Constitution of the United States. And particularly those who are arrested, and they are arrested and sent here or there, and they have done nothing illegal. They have done nothing wrong.
You know, Dr. I thought the any persons, the 14th Amendment is not just citizens, it's any persons clause.
That's right.
That does include due process. And one would argue and think that the 14th Amendment, again, part of the bribery to keep the states in the union. Don't forget, it's Texas, Florida, that send these immigrants, people who are yearning to breathe free to these cities. And then they end up in Evanston. And then we end up on the political sword end of the politics of what those states who rejected the any persons clause of the 14th Amendment, when Donald Trump says, I'm going to blue cities to get these people, that the 14th Amendment say have a right to be here and to be processed accordingly. Gina?
You know, in this whole conversation, I think what just really became glaring to me, and you find this in some of the quotes with the founders, and especially when you think about the First Amendment and the freedom to speech. My question has now become, can freedom to do as we please and freedom that keeps the law and order and a higher power than ourselves within humanity, can they coexist? Because you will find that the founders, probably the framers, as they wrote, trusted that the good of mankind would come forward at some point so that every man would come together to believe that theirs was the right way, though they did not hold people accountable. If there were people who had not come to faith, they were still welcome. And so if that's part of society grows more, where there's an apostasy from a belief system at all that is beyond self, can we exist as a nation and call it a democracy? Can we even get there? And we're going to have to probably deal with that when we come forward. But I need to know the answer to that question as well.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest in this hour is the distinguished pastor of the Second Baptist Church of Evanston, Illinois. Dr. Neighbors is our very special guest. You've been listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is not saying if he'll veto an alternative budget backed by some aldermen.
If I find this budget, to be irresponsible and unbalanced, then it leaves me with very few options.
The plan heads to a full vote on Saturday, and the city must pass a budget by year's end to avoid a shutdown. iHeartMedia is extending its deal with Charlamagne the God, co-host of The Breakfast Club and co-founder of the Black Effect Podcast Network. They'll continue hosting the show weekdays and weekends with DJ Envy, Jess Hilarious, and Lauren LaRosa. And former President Barack Obama is continuing his tradition of sharing his year-end favorites, highlighting artists like Kendrick Lamar and SZA, plus Burna Boy and Travis Scott among his top tracks of 2025. Obama says he enjoys hearing new recommendations too, and his full list are posted on his Instagram and Facebook pages. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the takeover? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The college football playoffs kick off this weekend. 4 teams have first-round byes. Tappan Smiley's Indiana Hoosiers, Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas Tech. UCLA fans may find out on Saturday when new football coach Bob Chesney reports for work. Chesney, hired by UCLA on December 6th, was permitted to coach James Madison in their first-round playoff game Saturday at Oregon. When James Madison's season is over, Chesney will be on the clock at UCLA. Oregon is a 20-point favorite over James Madison. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford has 40 touchdown passes this season, one shy of his single-season career high. He's had 41 twice in his 16-year career. As good a season as Stafford is having, he's a long way from the NFL record. Peyton Manning holds the NFL record with 55 touchdown passes in 2013 when he was with Denver. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Hello?
Hi, this is Regional Power and Utility calling to inform you of an outstanding balance.
I thought I paid that.
You're scheduled for immediate shutoff unless it's resolved today. I can help you make your payment right now.
Learn to pause, reflect, and protect yourself from scams with the help of the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Nice try. Visit aarp.org/fraudwatch network to recognize fraud sooner.
When you turn to the Employment Development Department, we'll help you get there. Whether it's support for you and your family while you find a new job, or the resources to focus on your recovery after illness or injury, we can help you move forward. From support while you bond with your newborn, to helping serve your family while your partner serves our country. Your EDD. We'll help you get there. For more information, visit edd.ca.gov.
1 year ago, flames tore through Altadena and Eaton Canyon, changing lives forever. From the ashes, can a beloved community rise stronger? Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, host of First Things First, weekday mornings, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580. And I'm inviting you to join us on Wednesday, January 7th, as we broadcast live from Perry's Joint on the 1-year anniversary of this horrific and devastating fire. We're remembering those we lost, celebrating the heroes and sheroes who answered the call, and honoring the resilience of neighbors who are determined to rebuild together.
I've been a strong Black woman a long time, and I can't just break down now.
Hear the stories of survival, the voices of recovery, the spirit of community that the fire couldn't destroy, and yes, the angst of those who still do not know where they go from here.
Yeah, where am I go?
At KBLA Talk 1580, we don't just cover the story, we're part of this community, and we've done our level best to hold those responsible for this fire accountable. And 1 year later, we're still standing together.
It is my hopes that Black people will rebuild those homes.
So join us live at Perry's Joint, 2051 Lincoln Avenue in Pasadena, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Wednesday, January 7th, as we commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire. Because some stories demand to be remembered.
This too shall pass.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 kick, volley, volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me.
Happy Fridays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Welcome forward to KBLA Talk 1580. Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns, our executive producer, as well as creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, joins us along with Dr. Neighbors. Dr. Neighbors is the pastor of Second Baptist Church, the historic Second Baptist Church of Evanston, Illinois. Dr. Neighbors, welcome forward to the show.
Thank you so much, Jesse.
Gina, you raised a question just before we went to break.
I absolutely did. And I posed the question to both of you. When the society becomes unequal, or there's a side of the society or a segment of the society that no longer wants to extend to the stranger, when there is a side of society that doesn't believe in free speech and the tenets, can we still salvage the ideals of the nation, I think is what I really want to get to. Because if you can't go back to some of the ideals that we've never attained, then what is it that we're fighting for?
Yeah, and Gina, again, that's such a wonderful question. And I think that, one of my initial responses is, where is there hope? I brought up Advent in this season of expectation, but I want to go a little bit deeper with that and to suggest that while it appears that we are fighting a losing battle at the national level in our country, I think that we cannot forget the fact that locally there are initiatives and there is work that's being done that's really helping those who are historically defined as the least and the lowest, and those who are marginal. And I want to share, just a couple of weeks ago in Evanston, we hosted the 5th Reparations Symposium. And at that symposium at the Downtown Hotel Orrington, we had over 300 people in attendance representing over 30 states in our country and dozens of cities and towns where Black and white folks many who are elected officials have started reparations initiatives. And in this past year, I think that it's important for you all to know, I know you know this, just a month or two ago, it was Tulsa, Oklahoma, whose mayor said, we are going to set aside $106 million to help repair the damage that was done to those who lost their lives and their homes and everything else in 1921, I think, in Greenwood. That's one local phenomenal achievement that has occurred with people that are hurting. Last year, it was Palm Springs that came up with nearly $7 million for folks that were suffering. In Evanston, now we're upwards of $20 million. There are reparation programs now that are financed in Amherst, Massachusetts, in Asheville, North Carolina. So when we stop and think about the national struggle of bearing the burden, we can at least recognize that bearing the burden is a little lighter when we recognize what we're doing at the local level. And I am encouraging people, I'm just a local pastor, you all know that. I'm just a local Baptist pastor of one of the smaller churches in Metro Chicago. But we're doing a work that is substantial and making a difference, not just in the lives of Black people in this community, but educating white people as well. You all know that there are 18 churches in Evanston that are white churches, our allies, that have given $1 million to a reparations nonprofit that we started. That can be replicated everywhere. We can fight against this demonic system of tyranny that seems to be taking over our country locally until we have the ability to get our country back. That's my response. Yeah.
Dr. Neighbors, let me, if I can, I'd like to pivot for a moment to part of a question that Gina raised about the stranger.
Yeah.
We had 2 guests on our regular contributors on our program, Atiba, as well as Dr. Johnny Mack, who said, as we will give you at the end of our program in the next segment, a moment for a word of hope, that the hope can be found in each of us. And in this season of Advent, we had earlier on our program, the eminent Howard Thurman theologian and biblical scholar, Dr. Walter Fluker,
Yeah.
who shared with us a question that I raised to him about The Stranger. With Head and Heart, the autobiography of Howard Thurman, he begins the story by talking about his difficult childhood and the experiences that he had in growing up in the Jim Crow South.
Yeah.
He talked about, to speed the story up, all of the family members coming together to scramble a few dollars together to send him to high school in Daytona Beach and ultimately to college. He got to the train station, and Dr. Fluker said he had a first-class ticket or a ticket on the train, but he couldn't afford to get his trunk on the train with his personal belongings. And so he had resolved that he was not going to go to high school. He was going to go back to the sharecropping plantation, began crying over in a corner, and with tears, essentially tears, mucus, and saliva all in a pile, he noticed when he wiped away his tears, there were a pair of old rusty boots. And it was a man standing there as he looked up in overalls. And he asked the boy what he was crying about. And he reached in his pocket, he grabbed out a little sack, and he said, Thurman responded, I can't afford to take my trunk with me. And so I've decided not to go to college. So the man went over and bought him a ticket for his trunk. And all he remembers is the train taking off, and he looked down the tracks, and until the man was walking in the opposite direction, he just disappeared. He calls him the stranger.
Yeah.
And he says it is the stranger that he credits with sending him to high school and to college. And when you think about this season where Jesus is born as a stranger in the world, that three strangers show up at his birth, that the stranger on the Jericho road, Fluker posits the question or the point that for Thurman, the stranger is God. God is watching the people walk by him on the Jericho road. And it is the Samaritan who stops. The stranger who showed up in Howard Thurman's life was God who showed up in his life at the moment that he needed God. I know we're going to talk about this when we come forward, but we do have 2 minutes before we do. Can we begin the conversation in your thinking, Dr. Neighbors, on the importance in this hour in American history, in world history, of the stranger?
Well, you were talking to a world-class theologian in Walter Fluker, who has come through Second Baptist Church. You probably know that, as well as the Evanston community when he attended Garrett Seminary. So he is spot on. I think there is essentially nothing more important right now in the United States than for us to revisit what it means to entertain the stranger. This is an Old Testament theme and motif that is so incredibly tied to Judaism that one can hardly be a decent Jew without entertaining the stranger. It's rooted in the depth of their religion. And Jesus, of course, borrows that by talking about the Good Samaritan, which epitomizes what a stranger is, what we do to a stranger, right? A stranger is somebody that does represent God. So I think that's absolutely spot on. It's brilliant. And I haven't finished my sermon for Sunday, so you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to include some of what you just shared in my sermon come Sunday morning.
I had this funny feeling that might happen even as I'm trying to develop a sermon myself. But Fluker was clear, though. I know we have about 30 seconds before we come forward, but Fluker was clear that the Samaritan is not God. The stranger is God. He's the observer of how he's treated by people. And it is in the stranger that God exists. And maybe when Jesus is answering the lawyer's question, he makes himself the Samaritan in terms of how he would handle the stranger, because Jesus of Nazareth saw God on the Jericho road, bleeding, beaten, and robbed. And he stopped enough to put his life back together. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our guest is the pastor of the Second Baptist Church in Evanston, Illinois. And this is Fat Meat Friday with none other than the executive producer, creator, and Princeton Theological Seminary graduate, Gina Towns. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I know that hiring can be challenging. You sort through tons of resumes and you get too many so-so applicants. You're just waiting for someone to match your role perfectly. Well, now there's a place where you can meet them fast. ZipRecruiter.
Need to hire right away. Start your search for strong candidates. The right fit awaits. Build your team. Build it sooner. Meet your match on ZipRecruiter.
Just head to ZipRecruiter.com/free right now to try it for free. And you're on your way to meeting your match. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. So try it now. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Meet your match on ZipRecruiter. Try it free.
So you need last minute gifts. No judgment. Get an extra 25% off during Kohl's Friends and Family Sale and find great gifts under $20. Like something cozy, something thoughtful, something that says you planned this all along. Yep, you're just one quick trip away from checking off the last gifts on your list. Save now at Kohl's and Kohl's.com. Select styles. Offer ends December 24th. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Hey, nice job, Pete. I like those clean lines. Fellas, do we have anyone that can get to Greenport today?
At Corey's Landscaping, the staffing plan is in the weeds.
Anthony, we need that leaf blower over here. 3 more new customer requests just came in. Who wants to work some overtime?
He needs to dig up quality landscapers and fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, it's easier for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach, transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal, prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Are you coughing a lot, especially at night? Are you often short of breath? Are you using your rescue inhaler often? These could be signs that your asthma is not under control. To keep your asthma in check and help prevent an asthma attack, ask your healthcare provider for an asthma action plan. This is a personalized plan you create with your doctor that shows you what to do and what medicines to help control your asthma and to use when you're having a hard time breathing or when you're having an asthma attack. Please don't wait until you're having an asthma attack. Do something about it now. Schedule a visit with your healthcare provider today to make that action plan and take control of your asthma. For more tips and resources on the management of asthma, visit luma-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jackson Jr. Show. King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
KBLA Talk.
Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580.
Dr. Neighbors is the pastor of Second Baptist Church in Evanston, Illinois, a historic church not only in our city, state, and in our country, but a historic church in the world, formerly pastored by the Reverend Dr. Heisel B. Taylor, a close and dear friend of mine who expired a number of years ago. But if there ever was a preaching machine, it was definitely Dr. Taylor. I want to turn, if I can, for a second, Dr. Neighbor, knowing full well that you're going to have the final few moments of our program, to Gina. When I think about that story of the Samaritan, to which Jesus is answering the question for the lawyer who's trying to jam him up in a conversation over who is my neighbor, Jesus may be telling the story of the Samaritan, but the story is not told from the perspective of the Samaritan. In fact, we might even assume that the Samaritan is unaware that the priest even walked by in the first place, or the Levite. They did not show up all at the same time. So the story is not told from the perspective of the Levite or the priest. The story is obviously told to the lawyer from Jesus, but the person with all of the details of the story is the stranger. The person who had been beaten, who had been robbed, who watched every character on the Jericho road and then had an assessment of what brotherly love and care and concern, and Dr. King would argue, a profound, extreme altruism represented. And therefore, Fluker posits that for Howard Thurman, Gina, the stranger is God. It is the observer of how they're being treated that puts them in the superior position, even though Jesus uses the example in response to the lawyer.
You know, I'm glad that you brought this to the forefront of our conversation, because it also pivots to Jesus's, you all call me Lord, Lord, but I never knew you, because you did not do unto the least of these. When I was in prison, you didn't come and visit me. When I needed clothes, you gave me none. When I was thirsty, you gave me no water. It is the same observation that comes in that spirit of the stranger who is watching. And I think that's why I have brought up what I brought up today for our discussion, because we espouse these values. I mean, USAID was formulated because we, as the wealthiest nation, as the patriarch of the world, the military leader, the moral guide, position ourselves in judgment as the stranger was watching these people walk by. And so I'm saying, if we lose faith in there being a Samaritan, if we stop being Samaritans ourselves because we have lost hope, then we lose our society. And the purpose for today's show was to wrap up everything that we've talked about. It's not about race. It's about humanity. And I wanted to share, Reverend Neighbors, when we spoke this morning, I said to you, I think you are the perfect person to round out this thought process towards Jesus and earthly leaders, faith and judgment, perseverance and history, the human story of divine origin. Whether you believe or not, whether you've come to faith or not, there is a perseverance that we must have in human history. We must have a belief towards what is good. And I know we're working our way toward our word of hope for the week, but as we enter this season, some people will not have the same Christmas that they've had in the past. And so we want to put some perspective around hope and our celebration of life and humanity.
Dr. Neighbors, you have 4 minutes to the top of the show. Please incorporate your thoughts that only you can deliver.
I will do the best I can, and I will share with you that from the call this morning, I had a chance to jot some things down, and I want to share with you all that what my mother taught my siblings and I when we were younger is on my mind today. And she would always say, if you can't find something nice to say about somebody, don't say anything at all. And my mother's words sounded so reasonable and filled with a spirit of kindness that can make our world a better place in which to live. But my mother passed away 20 years ago, but I have to say, I can't do it. And I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter to my mom. And I say in that letter about what we're talking about, I'm so sorry, Mom. We're living in times where tough and rough language is an important tool in the fight against tyranny and anarchy. Sweeping through our cities and states is this most heinous and ghoulish evil in our nation's history, and we're nearly 250 years old. Mama, the wretched of the earth find themselves in strategic positions in the current administration that is steering our nation. Lives are being upended. Human beings are being hunted down and taken away from their families. If anyone possessed a spirit of sheer malevolence, Mama, it is this administration. The appointees and other elected officials are doing the same. They've given new meaning to corruption and brutish bullying of everyone standing in their way. They've hurt the most vulnerable people in our nation who are striving to better themselves by escaping their own countries to live in a better land. International students striving to strengthen their education. Women, all Black and brown and poor people, seniors are all hurting. Mama, if left unchecked and ignored, these people will gut the advancements of civil and human rights that your generation accomplished so wonderfully. So I know that what you said those many years ago seems so righteous in every generation, but these people do not listen to reason, to common sense, to calm dialogue, to rational discussion. They are evil, and nothing will change them except an overwhelming defeat. And so, Mama, they are the very worst. They are liars and thieves, and you told us that liars and thieves may not even make it to heaven. They are the wretched of the earth. They are morally bankrupt. They are evil, and I mean every single word of it. So I end that, Gina, by saying that while I do believe that we are caught on the precipice of an enormously interesting time, we must be strong enough to use a language that has not been used before by people of faith in our tradition. And that language has got to be tough enough so that folks who are suffering so greatly will know that they have advocates on their behalf. That's my.
Reverend Neighbors, thank you so much for spending this time with us on Fat Meat Fridays and the Gina Town Show.
Can you give us that last part there for those in our listening that cannot hear, that these are the times that try men's souls?
These are times that try men's souls. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Listen to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward. Final two shows of the year before Christmas will be next Monday and Tuesday. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is